Yeah, please. How's the weather up in my buddy went to Boise. Anyway, so you can join us. Yeah, no, So I'm not there.
Testing, all right.
You guys testing?
Testing.
Test.
Okay.
Testing, testing.
Sitting right next to you.
Say that again.
Hello?
Is mine working? Is mine working? Oh.
We were just gonna give it another few minutes to see if Gary, because he didn't say he was gonna miss.
Okay.
Say something to people online, maybe, well,
No, there's no.
yeah, we don't do any Zoom online anyway, so.
Okay, we will call the Airport Advisory Commission meeting to order. All join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Commissioners Hurst. Roll call.
How about that?
Yeah.
Roll call, yes.
Commissioners Hurst, Martin, Wells, Watt,
Here.
and Chair Hughes.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, we have any public input?
No, sir.
That's great. On to the consent calendar. So we have any items?
Take a motion for approving the February 11th, 2026 minutes.
Got it. That's the only thing we have. So do we have a motion to approve the minutes from February?
I'll second.
Any opposed? All those in favor? Aye. All right. So we have commission business. Let's see, presentation. You have a presentation for us?
Just a little brief staff report here. So noted for the commission, so Patrick Heaton of Kimley Horn will be online virtually, and we have one other member of the team that worked on the economic impact study for us online. So they are with Kimley Horn. They're the ones that got the award of the contract. This was a unique opportunity. We were able to do a joint RFP with the 4 regional airports. So it's not just an economic impact study for Hollister. It was a regional effort, and so we had gained some cost efficiencies and we're able to look at regional impact since we kind of also operate as a region. So I'll let them get into their presentation, but we also did studies for Watsonville Municipal Airport, Marina Municipal Airport, and Salinas Municipal Airport. With that, I would like to turn it over to Patrick.
All right, thank you, Jeff, and thank you everyone for joining us tonight and letting us present about the economic impact study. As Jeff mentioned, my name is Patrick Eaton. I was the project manager for Kimley Horn for the economic impact study. I'm joined by my colleague Drew Latouche this evening, who was instrumental in the completion of the study. And we're going to give you just an overview of the study and discuss the airport's contributions to the San Benito County economy. We're going to walk through the methodology used, highlight some of the key findings, and discuss how this the analysis will support your decision-making and your future investments for the airport. At the end, we'll take a few minutes. We'll be able to answer any questions you may have and discuss next steps for the project. All right, and are you able to pull up the slides? Are you able to see the presentation at this time?
Yes, we can see it.
Wonderful, thank you. All right, well then we'll move to our second slide here.
One second.
Yes,
Yes,
Go ahead.
go ahead.
Okay, wonderful. And if you could just return up to the top of the presentation, that would be great. That looks like that's about slide 9. Excellent, thank you. All right, well then we'll keep on going. Thank you. We'll go to our second slide here, contents. Just to talk about what we'll look at today during the presentation. We'll start with an overview of the purpose and process of the economic impact study, or what we'll call an AEIS. You may hear that term. And discuss some of the key terminology and methodology used in the study. Understanding these terms and processes will help when we communicate the results that we developed and really help you understand what they represent. Next, we'll actually walk through those impacts, looking at the calendar year 2024 economic impacts of Hollister Municipal Airport, which was the most recent year of available data when we conducted this study. We'll then discuss some of the additional airport impacts that arise that may not be readily apparent to the public, and really demonstrate how Hollister contributes to San Benito County. And then finally, as I mentioned, we'll talk through the study deliverables and then have a chance for you to have some questions. So moving to the next slide now, we'll talk about what an economic impact study actually is. And really, it is meant to be a tool, if we move to the next slide, that quantifies the economic and social benefits associated with the airport's activity. The study examines the employment and monetary impacts of activities occurring, as I said, in 2024 at Hollister Municipal Airport, including the activities of the airport administration, Jeff's team, the on-site businesses with employees there, the capital expenditures for airport construction, and the spending by out-of-county visitors that are flying into San Benito County and then spending money in the county's hospitality sectors. Additionally, the study will look at some social impacts of these activities and the role the airport plays in the community, which we'll get into a little bit and a little further on. Moving to the next slide now, I just want to make it very clear what an airport economic impact study does and does not aim to achieve. So first and foremost, it is meant to convey the importance of the airport to San Benito County's residents, businesses, and visitors. It examines both the quantitative and the qualitative impacts of the airport to the community. And the deliverables that we'll discuss later today are really meant to support a communication and justification strategy for you to take to the city, the county, the state, and the FAA as justification for future airport improvements. However, I want to make it very clear what an economic impact study does not achieve. And that's really, first and foremost, that it is not a forward-looking document. We are capturing the economic impacts of Hollister as it was operating in 2024. And therefore, the economic impact study does not make recommendations for airport business or operational decisions. And it does not serve as really a true planning tool like a master plan or a business plan would for future airport development. Instead, it's going to provide the justification of why those different plans might be helpful to help justify and plan out specific developments for the future airport. And then finally, the economic impact study does not serve as a return on investment analysis. We are not looking at if you put X number of dollars into the airport, you will get X return in the terms of economic impact. We are truly just focusing on what the current activity is. And it's another reason it's important to, on a regular interval, update these impact studies so that you can demonstrate that growth of the airport. So moving to the next slide, and we'll cover what Jeff mentioned a little bit already, but the actual purpose of why Hollister chose to conduct this AEIS. So as I mentioned, first and foremost, it was to document the 2024 economic impacts of the airport administration and the on-site businesses there at Hollister, as well as to trace the flow of money from the GA visitors that were flying into Hollister and then spending money in the county's hospitality sectors. As Jeff mentioned, Hollister completed this study in conjunction with Salinas, Marina, and Watsonville municipal airports, not only to save money through some economies of scale, because we are effectively doing 4 economic impact studies at once, which helped us streamline that process for everyone, but also to really demonstrate the true regional value of general aviation airports in the Monterey County or Monterey Bay area and the Central Coast of California. And this is really important because all 4 airports not only serve a similar role as relievers to the San Francisco Bay Area and to Monterey, but they also support very similar activities, most notably the airport or advanced air mobility sector that has really become a hub in the region. And so it was very important we were able to capture that, and we'll discuss that a little more now later on. So with that, I'll hand it over to Drew to discuss some terms and measures that we used in the study in the next few slides.
Yeah, thank you for that, Patrick. Now that we know what an AEIS is and what its purpose is, I want to take a few moments just to define a few key terms used in the study that'll help us interpret some of the results that we go over today and deepen our understanding of how this analysis was actually conducted. Go to the next slide. All right. So first, I want to go over these economic impact measures. We generally group these into 4 different buckets, as you can see here on the screen. Starting from the left, we have employment. Employment includes the total number of full-time and part-time employees. Next, we have payroll, which includes the total compensation of these full-time and part-time employees, meaning things like benefits, obviously wages paid, and then taxes paid on behalf of the employee as well. Next, we have value added. Value added refers to the airport's contribution to San Benito County's regional gross regional product, which is a subset of the GDP. This includes payroll, profits, and taxes paid by businesses related to aviation activity at the airport. And then lastly, we have output, which includes, again, payroll and value added, as well as total expenditures for the airport, capital improvements, and visitor spending. Output is also sometimes referred to as like business revenues, sales, economic activity, or just as impacts. Next slide. Next, I want to go over some of the sources of economic activity. We've organized these sources into two main categories. We have on airport and off airport. With on airport, we've got airport administration, refers to the day-to-day operations managed by the airport staff, including administrative staff, groundskeepers, things of that nature that help the airport run smoothly. Then we have airport business tenants, which are businesses that operate directly on the airport, such as flight schools, maintenance shops, and other specialty types of services that are available at the airport. Their presence also contributes to the overall economic footprint of the airport. And then lastly, for on-airport, we have the capital improvements expenditures. These are related to construction by the airport or the tenants and reflect the economic impact of infrastructure investments made on the airport grounds. And then for off-airport economic activity, we have general aviation visitor spending. This consists of any new money spent in the hospitality sector that's brought in from visitors outside of the county that are traveling to San Benito County. This includes money spent on like lodging, recreational activities, or other types of services that visitors spend money on. Go to the next slide. Next, we have our economic impact categories that we calculated in the study. So the direct impacts you can see here at the top include the airport administration, airport business tenants, capital expenditures, and GA visitor spending. Next, we have the secondary impacts, which are comprised of both indirect and induced impacts. These are often referred to as like supplier sales or portions of revenues being used or purchased goods and services that represent earned income by workers that are spent throughout the study region. So this would be in San Benito County. And then I do just want to note that the economic impact measures that were on just a couple slides ago, those are not additive, but the economic impact categories are, and they represent, so the direct and secondary impacts do equate to the total economic impacts, which you can see there in that graph. And we'll go to the next slide. So now that we have an understanding of some of the key terms and measures and things that we've used in the study, we'll go over our methodology and some of the data collection effort. Go to the next slide. Perfect. So starting from the left here, we have the data collection. This was a comprehensive effort that we used to identify some of the economic impacts and sources of economic activity. Next, we have the in-plan economic modeling. So this data collection went into that economic model to help us calculate some of those secondary impacts or induced and indirect impacts. And that fed into the total economic impacts as we discussed a couple slides ago. These both fed into the tax revenue impacts. And then in addition to those, we did a series of additional analyses that looked at the value of based aircraft, off-airport reliant businesses, impacts to nearby real estate, and then unique impacts. And these all feed into the communications toolkit, which helps to communicate the value of the airport to the community. We can go over to the next slide. Perfect. So just getting into some of the data collection effort, it started with an airport RFI, or a request for information, where we gathered information like airport employment, payroll, operating expenses, capital expenditures, tax revenue records, and airport operations records. Then we did an in-person site visit where we collected business tenant surveys and conducted those in person, and then followed up with businesses after to kind of finish collecting that data. This provided us with on-airport business employment, the types of services that were available at Hollister, and again, those capital expenditures that are or the capital expenditure construction spent by the airport's tenants as well. And then lastly, we had the General Aviation or GA Visitor Pilot and Passenger Survey. This was used, or this was deployed to gather pilot and passenger surveys that give us really that firsthand visitor spending information. This information was then processed and then compared to the in-plane industry data to estimate the average money spent by GA visitors per trip, or build out what we call a visitor spending profile for the various analyses that we used. So now that we've gone over the study methodology, some of the data collection, I'll turn it back over to my colleague Patrick, and he'll go over some of the results.
Excellent. Thank you, Drew. So we'll skip over to the next slide then. And really, this is the moment you've all been waiting for, which is the total economic impacts of Hollister Airport. But not only that, just representing the different ways that Hollister supports the community and the county economy. So without further ado, we'll move on to the next slide and share these impacts. So in total, which represents, as Drew said, the direct and secondary, the total impacts of Hollister supported about 268 total jobs with $16.5 million of associated payroll. This contributed about $22.6 million of value added to the county's gross regional product and culminated in more than 40 or nearly $41 million of total output across all sectors. This is comprised of, as Drew mentioned, those two buckets. We have the on-airport activities and the visitor spending. And as you can see, the majority of the impacts are supported by on-airport activities, not only the administration, Jeff's team, but also the several businesses that employ dozens and dozens of people across the airport in various industries. And then through the secondary impacts, those workers and those businesses support both the supplier sales that Drew mentioned, as well as the induced or income respending of those employees spending their money in the community, supporting further jobs. On the flip side, off-airport visitor spending did support about 26 jobs and $3 million of total output, illustrating that Hollister Airport is not only serving the residents of San Benito County, but also does act as part of the county's tourism economy. So now moving to our next slide, the next type of impact, which is our tax revenue impacts. So the aviation activities that occur at the airport generate fiscal impacts at the local, county, state, and federal level. And this is really generated through three main areas of activity. The first is our on-airport activities, which for the terms of taxes does vary slightly from what Drew just mentioned. This is more focused on like user fees and sales taxes for fuel, rental car, restaurants, services, construction, things like that. The visitor spending is literally just the taxes on the visitor spending that is occurring as people fly into the county via the airport. And then the third category is employees. And this is both on-airport and off-airport employees that are supported. And it represents the income taxes and the sales taxes that those employees pay when they are spending their money in the economy for things like living expenses and others. So in total, Hollister Airport supported about $5.46 million of total tax revenues. The vast majority of this is generated at the federal and state level. As you remember, I said there were about 242 total on-airport employees. And so those employees pay, federal and state income, Social Security, Medicare taxes that all flow up to that federal and state level. Meanwhile, the county and local taxes represent about $239,000 and $577,000 of tax impacts, respectively. So they shouldn't be left out of the impacts either. And those really represent more so the property and the sales taxes that are occurring as a result of airport activity, but do genuinely show support of the airport back to the city's general funds, that tax revenue base. So now moving on, we'll look at some of these additional airport impacts and those supplemental analyses that Drew mentioned. So we'll skip ahead a couple slides. As Drew mentioned, we had 4 separate analyses that looked at some various things, types of impacts that may not otherwise be captured in a traditional economic impact study. So on the next slide, we'll start with the first, which is the value of based aircraft. And as all of you, I'm sure, are very aware, Hollister Airport represents a protector of some significant investment. Both businesses and private individuals choose to base their sometimes priceless aircraft at the airport using the hangars and the aprons and the tie downs, with the understanding that the airport is going to protect and secure those aircraft for those users to use when they're able to. So as a result of that, we were actually able to quantify that using some data from the county assessor's office. And in total, we found that 134 total aircraft are based at the airport, and they have a combined value of about $34.1 million. When you average that out, that comes to about $250,000 per aircraft. And if you look at the median aircraft value, it's just shy of $85,000. And you may be wondering why there's such a big difference. And that really can be explained actually in the picture you can see there on the screen, that the airport has a lot of single-engine piston aircraft that generally have a lower value per aircraft. And so that will bring that median down. But on the flip side, the airport also protects some jet and turbine aircraft and helicopters that have very high values. And so that's what brings that average back up. Regardless of the difference between the average and median, every dollar and every aircraft that is based at the airport really reflects the confidence that users have in Hollister Municipal Airport to protect their investment and support aviation activities for the long term. So moving to the next slide, in our next analysis, we looked at the impacts of the airport on nearby real estate. I'm sure all of you are aware, but airports can often have an influence on property values just due to the exposure of aircraft noise and operations. And so our study examined the impacts by correlating the relationship between proximity to the airport and average property value of residential properties, saying those are the ones that are usually most affected by aircraft noise and operations. So what we were able to do was we were able to create 4 distinct areas set at different radii around the airport. So we looked at the 1/4, 1/2, and 1 mile distance around the airport, which really represents what we call the airport influence area. This is where the majority of the operations and noise are occurring. This is going to capture the traffic pattern around the airport. So where the activity is really occurring. We use some county assessor data and tax roll data to find the median and average value of each property. And then we actually made that consistent by looking at it on a per acre scale so that we weren't looking at big properties having higher values versus smaller properties. We then compared that with the median and the average value within a 5-mile control sample. So we were looking at residential properties within 5 miles of the airports so that we were not trying to compare it with properties way down south in San Benito County that really wouldn't be affected by airport operations whatsoever. The analysis found that the properties within the immediate vicinity of the airport, particularly the 1/4 and 1/2 mile radii, had the lowest median and average values per acre. And you may be concerned, especially looking here at the values on the slide, that the airport influence area has a massive negative impact on residential properties. I'm here to calm your nerves a little bit by saying that the largest difference is really due to just the makeup of the properties around the airport. As you are all familiar, there's a lot of agricultural, rural industrial, and just generally sparsely populated properties around the airport. And our analysis only focused on the residential properties, as I said, because those are most affected. So these values you see here are more so to do with a smaller sample size rather than a true negative relationship between airport proximity and property value. On the flip side, the 5-mile control sample includes most of the city of Hollister. And so those densely packed residential properties within the city's central business district are naturally going to have that higher property value. And so that's why you see that very large discrepancy. Looking at this just on face value, as I said, you may see it as negative. I personally see it actually as positive because this really demonstrates that the airport has adopted appropriate land use measures around itself to make sure it is protecting not only the residents of San Benito County, but the users of the airport from any land use compatibility that may threaten the viability of the airport in the future. So with that, we'll move to our third analysis on the next slide, which was the impacts of off-airport reliant businesses. So as Drew mentioned, our main analysis looked at business tenants. So that's anyone that has a business physically on site at Hollister Airport with employees. But that does not reflect the businesses that use aviation to conduct business that may not actually be based there with employees. And so this analysis examined those businesses to really estimate what the additional economic impacts are of businesses that rely on aviation to operate, serve, and provide products and services. So what we were able to do was we first formulated a reliant business survey that was disseminated to all of the private hangar and aircraft tenants on the airport, asking if those owners use their airport or aircraft for business purposes, things like a doctor flying from Hollister to another community to serve patients, or someone using their aircraft to fly customers in to use their local business. We took those results and then supplemented them with what is called the Esri Business Analyst tool. And it's this very unique nationwide database that can estimate the number of employees for a given business based on its basically federal tax records and its location and its industry. And so what we were able to do was we were able to filter down to approximately 16 reliant industries. Basically, these are things that in our experience or from feedback received from the survey were found to be businesses that typically use airports to transport goods or customers or staff or customers and transport their products between markets. We then used the survey results to estimate what we called a reliance percentage. This is basically whatever the portion of that business's total economic output was that's actually associated with the airport. Effectively, what amount of business would not exist if it were not for the airport and the ability to use those aviation services. With that, we found about 130 potentially reliable businesses, and then we applied that reliance percentage to estimate the direct employment and direct impacts. We then calculated the indirect and induced impacts using IMPLAN, as Drew described, very similar to the total impacts that we discussed earlier. And we were able to determine or estimate that approximately 67 jobs are supported by these off-airport reliant businesses, contributing $2.9 million of payroll, $3.7 million of value added, and $6.6 million of total output. It's really important to note, however, looking at these numbers, you'll see that we use the same measures as we do for the total impacts we just talked about. But it's very important to note we can't sum these because with the data we have available, we can't be sure that the reliant businesses are specifically using Hollister full-time to conduct their operations, even if they are aviation reliant. Oftentimes, businesses will use whatever the nearest airport or whatever the most available airport is. And so that might be one of the other general aviation airports in the Monterey area, or it might be up in San Jose. And so with that in mind, we do want to associate that these are aviation reliant businesses, but we want to make it clear that they are not directly tied to Hollister and therefore should not be summed. Finally, we'll look at the fourth analysis here on the next slide. And these are things that I'm sure all of you are familiar with. But what we want to do was capture some of the more unique qualitative activities that are occurring at Hollister or are a result of Hollister Municipal Airport that really support the community and the safety aspect of the local community. So first off, I'm sure you are all familiar with Whisk Aero, which is an advanced air mobility and electric vertical takeoff and landing, or eVTOL, aircraft manufacturer. It's got a through-the-fence agreement with the airport and maintains its primary testing and prototype assembly location there in Hollister. That's brought a ton of very high-paying aerospace jobs to Hollister, and is really making Hollister part of this, Monterey Bay region area that is becoming a nationwide hub for the AAM industry. On the more traditional aviation services side, I'm sure many of you are familiar with the Vintage Wings and Wheels location, that maintenance and repair facility that provides historic aircraft restoration and specialized maintenance services for pre-1950s aircraft, specifically the Stearman. That's their kind of claim to fame. They've restored several that actually won awards in nationwide contests. And Vintage Wings and Wheels have made Hollister a destination for aircraft owners literally from around the world to come to Hollister to get their aircraft service, which contributes not only to their operations, but also supports the economy through that visitor spending we mentioned. And then finally, and perhaps most critically, CAL FIRE operates the Hollister Air Attack Base at Hollister Airport. And they provide year-round aerial firefighting, search and rescue, and emergency response operations for the Monterey Bay area and regions of Central California. And that really improves the quality of life and general safety of Hollister, of the surrounding region. And that's an impact that just can't be quantified with money. As we see, in years past, we've had some devastating wildfires in the central coast of California, and Hollister Air Attack Bases provide a pivotal role in supporting fighting those fires. So with that walks us through all of the results of the presentation. I'll hand it back over to Drew to talk through some study deliverables on the next slide.
Yeah, thank you, Patrick, for going over those total impacts and the additional analyses. So next, we just wanted to give you guys a good overview of some of the deliverables that we've developed as part of this study. So first, we have the technical report and the executive summary. The technical report really is the meat of this analysis. It's got all of the study methodology, the data, and the results that we've summarized today. And then that executive summary provides some of the highlights and key points of our study that we did, and provides them in a little bit more digestible format for some of the stakeholders and elected officials that you might share this information with. Next, we have the Hollister Airport Primer Brochure. This is in a short and easy to understand format that's really intended to be shared with really any audience. This brochure, we really intended it to be forward-facing, to be put on the airport's website or displayed at City Hall, really shared with the stakeholders to communicate, the value and spread the word about Hollister's many economic and social impacts for the Hollister community. And then finally, we have the Monterey Bay Area Regional Overview Brochure. This brochure, and again, as Patrick mentioned, this study for Hollister was done in partnership, with Marina, Salinas, and Watsonville. So this brochure provides kind of a overview and highlights all the key activities that are occurring at all 4 airports in the Monterey Bay region, like AAM, like those safety critical missions, like law enforcement and other things that really provide value not only to Hollister but again to the Monterey Bay region as a whole. And then in addition to those, we have this PowerPoint summary that we'll share with you. And then we've also developed a little GIS toolkit, a database that the city can upload to its GIS database that has some key data points from the study, some of the analyses that we've conducted along the way. So with that said, those are all of the final deliverables in our communications toolkit. Patrick, unless you have anything else, I think we can kind close here and turn it over to some questions, comments from the commission members.
Yes, thank you so much, Drew. Appreciate that. As Drew said, yeah, we're happy to take any questions you may have. My one request is if you could just identify yourself, because it's a very tiny screen. I can't see who's talking. Just want to make sure we're addressing the appropriate person.
Questions?
Public comment? Oh, just call for public comment.
Do we have public comment?
No, sir.
Question?
No questions, but I'd just like to congratulate you on this study. It's very thorough and your presentation was great. And I appreciate the flyers as well. I would like to look at the full study at some time. In my spare time, maybe I'll go by the airport and take a look with Jeff. I think it's a great source of information. And I think would be worthwhile to consider highlighting it in maybe as a needle link article. Those are my only, I guess they're not questions, comments.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for that. I believe Jeff had said that the full technical report will be available by request from email, or feel free to go down and visit them. That will have all of that technical documentation. But as you mentioned, you know, the primer brochure really covers those key highlights of the study.
Chair, if you don't mind reopening public comment, we do have one speaker in the audience.
Yes.
How you doing, Mr. Chair? Victor Gomez, former mayor, council member here in Hollister. I'm actually a local land use consultant. I'm here on the next agenda item, but
I just wanted to take the time, just quickly comment and say thank you for your leadership and all of your work that you're doing
with economic development around the airport. I am a partner with
JRVS Land Holdings. We are the landlord for Whisk Aviation. We're looking forward to maybe partnership opportunities with the city of Hollister, the airport, and of course the airport support areas around the airport. We do have other plans on building more hangars along the frontage of the airport for through the fence access for other airport operators. I actually met this morning up in San Jose with a potential future tenant of a new hangar that we want to build here to support Hollister and its vision. So again, just wanted to applaud you for your work. And of course, Jeff has been fantastic to work with. I wasn't, again, expecting to comment on this because I'm a consultant on the next presentation. But again, just wanted to continue to encourage you to do what you're doing
and encourage economic development in and around the airport. We want to invest as a partnership. We are committed to the city. All of us partners live in the city and invest here locally as well. So anyway, just wanted to share that. We're excited that you guys are happy to have Whisk in our community, but we want to do more. So thank you again.
There are no more public speakers.
So thank you guys for your presentation. Is that the end of this topic?
That concludes this item. I'd like to say thank you to the Kimley Horn team. They were great to work with. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
So we have a presentation for Allium Solar Energy.
Yes, and so you have a staff report that kind of gives some background here. So, you know, just recently the airport actually was able to meet with the project developer and their consultant, which you just met. So the project developer is Long Road Energy, and their consultant, local consultant, is Pinnacle Strategy LLC. And then the staff report gives you some various background, but I think in essence of time, we'll just go ahead and invite Lauren up to come up and make our presentation to us.
Yeah, so hi everyone. My name is Laren Cyphers. I work for Long Road Energy, the developer of the Allium Solar and Storage Project. I was preparing for this meeting and was looking back in our files, and we actually engaged the airport more than 5 years ago, back in April 2021. to initially like circulate this project. I did not work for them at that point. I don't know if y'all were around, but I think the engagement has sort of been off and on as we have been further developing the project. And as part of that, we've done coordination meetings, we've done some glare studies, and then I've met with Jeff a couple times, including in person a couple of months ago, where he flagged kind of our first like hearing of some concerns from the pilots. So I am here in order to be responsive to those concerns and intro the project. I think we can get into like those a little bit more on maybe like the layout slide, et cetera, but my plan is to walk through the project information, the glare analysis that we actually refreshed in 2025, and then I want to focus on committee input for sure. And I don't believe any decision is being asked of the committee today on Allium. This is more informational, but I would genuinely like to hear feedback. So please feel free to jump in or wait, whatever your normal process is. Okay, really quickly on Long Road. So this is the developer developing the Allium project. We are a highly respected outfit in the renewable energy industry. We currently operate projects in Merced, Fresno, and Imperial, and are in active construction and near active construction on several other projects in California. We also develop all over the US. I think an important nuance to our business model here is that we don't build to sell projects. We own our projects for their full operating life, so about 35 years. And I think the takeaway there for someone that could be our neighbor is that we'll be around for the life of the project and have every incentive to be, you know, a genuine and accountable long-term neighbor. Who's my slide? Oh, I'm the slide person. Okay. Oh, great. Okay, project overview facts here. So it's a 110 megawatt solar plus 110 megawatt battery energy storage project. Size relative in California, pretty medium, honestly, kind of on the small to medium end of projects in California at this point. The industry is growing and expanding rapidly. We are intending to build a project on about 945 acres. There's a single landowner. It's the Farmland Reserve Group. And 90% of those acres are either fallowed or being grazed. There's only about 10% being used as active cropland. And it's our perspective and the landowner's perspective that this is very low productivity ag land. So they're seeing this as a good economic opportunity. Other economic opportunities here. So at peak construction, we anticipate about 250 local union jobs. And then for operations, there will be about 3 to 5 full-time jobs plus several times a year we'll need to have an outfit of local contractors for like periodic maintenance. And then on top of the jobs, I think the county revenue anticipated is important to flag. So we expect millions in property plus sales and use taxes going to San Benito County in just the first years alone. And then compounding over the life of the project, that gets into the like $10 million. That said, projects like Allium place little to no strain on county services. So no additional strain on schools or utility usage or water usage. And local generation of energy does increase or better local grid resiliency too. So those are some of the ways that I think Allium would have a positive impact on the community. Here is the layout. So we obviously all know where we're talking about. It's 4 miles north of Hollister, across Highway 156 from, I believe that's runway 13. You'll see it's kind of small, but in the northwestern corner-ish, there's a conglomeration of brightly colored squares. And that denotes the battery and the substation and switchyard and the operation and maintenance building. And you can see that the battery storage is sited very far away from the airport as well as any other sensitive receptors We also have setbacks in place from the end of the runway and the property lines. And maybe now is a good time to acknowledge that, so when Jeff and I met, he flagged this idea of a clear zone concept, which would be a corridor that's between 100 and 150 feet wide, kind of extending off of the end of runway 13 through our project site, and that it would have no infrastructure inside it. And that would be in response to some pilot concerns on departure and landing. So I've already been working with our engineering team on whether we can accommodate that or not. And I think early indications are promising. We are treating this as a very serious design ask, not just like a flippant exercise. But I want to be transparent that this would not be a small accommodation to the project. It definitely affects the layout, the panel placement, and potentially the transmission line routing. But I do want to find a way to make this work and be safe. We can talk about that more. Maybe there's like a Q&A after this. Okay, quickly on project schedule. So we're currently in the environmental review process. That's the bulk of what's going to be happening between 2026 and 2027. For a hopeful construction start of 2028, and then commercial operations end of 2030. Headline message here is we've got a long ways to go, but things are picking up. We engaged Capital Airspace last year to refresh our sort of outdated glare and airspace impact assessment. And I've listed in layman's terms, I think, the high level findings. So no glare predicted on runway 6 or 31, even accounting for the planned extensions of runway 31. And then runway 24, there is I think like a average of 2 minutes for potential for temporary after image June, July. So a very short seasonal window. And then on runway 13, there is a brief potential for temporary after image September to April. I want to flag that the report is conservative in the sense that it doesn't account for fencing or vegetation or other like physical obstructions that might further mitigate the glare in practice and on the ground. My honest take on and layman's take on these findings is that my understanding is FAA doesn't require this type of study for off-site projects, but it was important to us to do them. It's also my understanding that the results are, I believe, within what FAA would have historically accepted for off-airport projects. And so I think this isn't a significant safety issue, but I definitely want to hear from you all, like how meaningful these findings are to you. And then last slide here, of course, the project is being designed to be compliant with the land use compatibility plan. The formal review of that compatibility would be much later in the process. And then we'll need to be compliant with FAA standards. The project is already designed with anti-reflective panels and minimal sight lining that will all be down-shielded. Quick note on battery safety, which I know is especially important in this community. So our project and all this one and all of our projects adhere to NFP 855 and UL 9540, which are the most rigorous battery safety standards out there. And we're designing the project to there's like an NFP 855 back from 2023. And there's one for 2026 that is not yet, it's like published but not yet written into code or anything, and we follow the more rigorous of those. And then as part of that, we do this UL 9540A testing, which is the industry gold standard for fire propagation testing that validates the battery technology we would use in the exact configuration we would use it, would not allow a single cell fire to spread or propagate. I think I mentioned that we have cited the battery with huge setbacks from the airport boundaries and any sensitive receptors. And then we've already engaged with the local fire department and will continue to do so, coming up with like an emergency response plan or any types of plans that they want us to do. Yeah, like I said, my intent today was to provide information on the project, listen to you folks, answer questions, and be responsive to our potential neighbor. I brought a lot of business cards if anyone wants them, and I'm happy to take any questions that anyone has. And thank you for the time.
So do we have any public comment?
No, sir.
Yes, do you have any questions?
Right.
First, Eric Watt. First question is, has any thought in the design process been to orientate the rows of solar panels so they are in line with the runway? The way it looks now, they're perpendicular to the runway. If there was an aircraft that went down that, if those structures were, there's any ways to align them where they're parallel or not directly perpendicular to the flow of the aircraft down and out of the runway, there would be much less potential for fatalities or aircraft damage because they would go between them instead of into the.
Right.
I don't know if your engineers have thought of that or considered that. If it could be worked into the plan, that would be much safer. To build them that way than perpendicular to the line of flight.
Yeah. I don't know that we have looked into that. I think generally we designed the project so that we are capturing the resource of the sun and there's like a certain access we need to follow. But I will write that down and ask, absolutely. I just don't immediately know the answer.
Second question. Will this solar panel, and I'm not familiar if the airport wanted to put an ILS approach system out there and required lights, would this impact our ability in the future to put a precision landing system into 1-3? Because that would further allow development of the airport if that could be put in. Will this project prevent that from happening? I think that's a question that needs to be answered by the airport.
Okay. What did you call that system?
Instrument landing system, ILS system. It requires radios and lights to be put in, extend out several thousand feet from the end of the runway.
Okay.
And your study should, I don't know those dimensions off the top of my head, but they're well publicized and we could all find them.
Okay. Jeff, we can work on that.
Yes, we
Together.
can.
Okay.
I would comment on behalf of the airport that newer approach systems are coming on more and more online. So ILS is kind of an outdated, archaic dinosaur that it takes a lot of space. It requires a lot of hard trenching power, etc. So I would think that we would probably be pursuing something other than that, but it's still a great question and we will get an answer. And with that,
I'll also just say that the project is slated to have a 35-year lifespan. We are leasing the land from Farmland Reserve, the landowner, so we're not purchasing it. And so it's likely that the project would be decommissioned after that point. So I don't know like the time scale of those improvements, but that's what we're working with.
I have a couple of questions. Thank you for your presentation. Very thorough. How close, I may have missed this, are you in proximity to Fraser Lake Airport? Or your property?
Yeah, we're definitely farther away. I don't know the exact mileage, but I do know that we included a glare and airspace impact assessment of that airport in the 2025 study, and there were no impacts. And I'm happy to share that. report with you if that would be helpful.
Was there any presentation made to tenants of the Fraser Lake Airport?
No, we have not coordinated with that airport to date.
The question is, are any of your other projects in close proximity to an airport?
I believe we have a project in close proximity to an airport in either Arizona or Nevada. I only develop projects in California, but I work on the like Western team. And that project, I think is undergoing construction now. So they were able to figure all of that out and successfully construct the project.
Do you know if those particular projects, if there's more than one, I don't know, have had any issues or concerns from local airport tenants or the public as far as an airport being near those projects?
Yeah. None that seemed to be gating or unworkable, obviously. And I know that we started early engagement with that airport and those constituents like we've done here. And so I think that probably helped sort of streamline.
And Renee, just to answer your question, it's exactly 3 miles from Fraser Lake.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Any questions, Eric?
Okay, I'd like to just kind of wrap up here. So, while we've asked them to look at whether the project could still meet its goals with aligning about 100 foot wide to 150 foot wide clear zone, things like what length should that be? Eric, you have good thought on that?
If you wanted it as safe as possible, there would be a path all the way through the solar panels. But that's unreasonable that they're going to clear that much land out. And what's to say that a farmer wouldn't have a tractor out there anyways?
Yeah.
So I was hoping that you would ask that question, that there be a clear zone. If you could put any of your access roads, that's what I was looking for in your plan, is if your access roads were aligned with the runway, and I didn't realize you were off axis by about 15 or 20 degrees.
Right.
If there's an access road that needs to be built, if it could just be aligned with the runway, 50 feet wide, 100 feet wide, whatever you need to get your equipment in, that would satisfy that. If it went through the whole property, it would be the safest thing. If it went 50 feet, that would be better than 10 feet. If it went 100 feet, that would be better than 50 feet.
Yeah. Can we put up the slide again? Is that okay? Because we looked at a map in detail and kind of thought through this. Okay, let's see if I have. And okay. Okay, I'm gonna verbally. So, runway 13, right? It's sort of, the project is here, and then it sort of is like, if you followed it all the way, it kind of veers off to the left side of the project. And we were looking at maybe not following the exact path of 13, but orienting it, basically moving it slightly west, minimally, and then having kind of a diagonal through those panels of a safety corridor of 150 feet. So that's what we've currently been looking at. And like I said, I think like promising results, and we're going to be able to figure something out here. Through the whole site does not sound like something we can figure out, but because of the way that the runway already is sort of angled, I think we can like extend off of that well into the site, providing a safe zone.
Yeah, and I don't know if the panel architecture is east-west or basically north-south. It's actually off axis a little bit.
Yeah.
But your access roads are left and right.
Yes, I hear what you're saying.
And it looks like the runway's only going to impact the lower left corner of your solar array anyways. So maybe you just turn those a different angle and provide an access road through them. And there's no Yeah, it would be great if there was a path through there that someone could see to go through there if they're not going to make the airport.
Yeah.
But that's pretty far away from the airport anyways. And there's nothing to say that a person in extremis looking over the nose of the airplane is going to see that, because they're going to be looking out the airport. It would just be safer with that through there.
As an experienced pilot, Eric, would you be more concerned that aircraft are more likely to land short of landing on runway 31 and need it as a landing zone, or that you would be taking off in the predominant wind direction from runway 31, and so it's more of a clear zone for an emergency landing?
Your largest impact will be an engine failure on takeoff,
Yes.
that you need that space on takeoff. And they're going to be looking forward. If they're trained correctly, they're going to be looking straight ahead at that altitude. Otherwise, they can turn away from it. Most airplanes are going to be high enough at that point to be able to turn away, but there's no guarantee with an engine malfunction that you're going to be high enough to turn away. So that's why having either the panels rotated in line with the runway, an access road through there, a clear zone, somewhere if somebody has to go down in there, that the aircraft would be minimally damaged.
Yeah. I think one of those three things I'm sure we can figure something out there. Yeah. We've only been looking at the idea of the clear zone, so I'll take back your other two ideas, but,
How sturdy they are? Are they just going to break away if an airplane hits them? I don't know.
I don't know either. Yeah, okay.
But I do know supporting structure would not break away. It would tear an airplane apart,
Yeah,
the supporting structure.
yeah. I don't want that.
And then I would ask just a question. So can you touch a little bit on the power output generation and what the perceived benefit is? I know you've talked with PG&E and how does that benefit Hollister and the area in general?
You're saying like who gets the power, kind of? Yeah. I'm glad you asked this question. This is a good opportunity for me to give my spiel here because this is a complex question with a complex answer. So 3CE is your utility provider, right? This project has a power purchase agreement with MCE, so Marin. They have a financial contract, which means they're purchasing the clean energy credits, but the physical grid benefits of having a power source right here in San Benito is like real and local. So the project would strengthen grid reliability. It reduces congestion on long distance transmission lines, and it also keeps the energy investment and jobs in this community. So the jobs, the millions in tax revenue, plus grid strength, those stay here in San Benito. And on top of that, like the land is currently fallowed, and so it's not displacing any productive economic activity. And to expand on that a little, because it's a little bit of, it's a little counterintuitive, but you think of the electrical grid like a big lake. So every power plant pours electricity into the lake, and then every home or business, when they turn the lights on, that draws out of the lake. And just like water, electricity preferentially flows to the path of least resistance to reach demand. So when Allium would generate power, it enters the grid right here in Hollister at PG&E's local infrastructure that already exists. It's right next to my hotel that I stay at. And because it's generated locally, the power naturally supports the nearest demand first. And so it doesn't get like packaged up and shipped to Marin like produce would. During heat waves or wildfires or transmission outages, the events where the grid is under the most stress, local generation is what keeps the lights on. So, yeah, I will say transparently, the local generation does improve reliability, but it would not directly lower electricity bills. So that's sort of the difference between like a financial contract
and local generation. And I would flip the question a little and say that, San Benito imports quite a bit of things from other regions, like food, supplies, consumer goods, and energy is no different. Residents here use power that's generated in other counties every single day. It's just maybe even other states, and it's kind of just how the grid in our modern economy works.
I think that's a,
That previous one from like 2018. I've seen this. There's a solar farm out there at the city. Anybody?
Panoche.
Nobody knows?
I think it's called Panoche. Yeah. The county does not love that project. It sounds like a myriad of problems and missteps occurred. That was very early on in the industry. I think the industry's grown up a lot since then. And I am aware of the elements that the county was disappointed on in that project. And I think we have a very easy path to not misstepping there. And it's just baked into normal industry practice there. I don't know about that project, but my project, yes. Yeah. I think they are in the middle of trying to recoup costs and get things back on track there. I don't know the full details, but yes.
okay, well, I'd like to just, point out that how great it is that we have project developer and local consultant that were very responsive to the ask to come and engage with the airport and to listen to our feedback. I will also disclose to you that this was sent to the local CAL FIRE operations, and they mentioned that they did not feel that there would be any impact to their aircraft operations, and they did not feel that it was appropriate for them to make a further statement beyond that message that they don't see it as an impact to their aircraft. So that being said, I think I'd like the responsiveness that we've received from the project developer, and I look forward to working together to see what options we can do. My experience has been that most of our operations being those of a B2 aircraft or less, you're talking about piston aircraft, and that a lot of engine out failures happen before you reach 500 feet altitude. And so likely you're probably going to be picking the end of the runway and out into our back 40 and not even get across the highway. So again, we want to be good partners with the project developer to have a positive relationship. They're going to be there long term, and I think we ought to be reasonable with both safety concern and balancing the goals of the project for the effectiveness and the efficiencies that they're after. So that being said, I'd like to thank Pinnacle Strategy for being responsive and arranging for Long Road Energy to come, and Lauren is a great representative.
Thank you for having me. Happy to come back whenever you need.
Thank you.
Yeah. And we'll reach out and kind of address some of those questions with you, Jeff.
Excellent.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
So we have a review of proposed NASA and their partners companies. What do you got?
Yes, so for staff report here, keeping this quickly. So NASA Ames Research Project is engaged in an air traffic management and safety project. And what they would like to do, it's for the Hollister ecosystem. They would like to engage in locating sensors here that would collect various data relative to uncrewed aircraft operations and or eVTOL operations. So at this point, it would kind of mimic what we did for True Weather. We would anticipate an airport use agreement being drafted initially. So because it is a NASA Ames research project, we are probably talking about multiple companies coming forward. So this is where we're going to have a little discussion. So as the airport management being able to evaluate things, what we would look at is right now they want 2 locations where they would actually have installations, and you have representative photos here. So it's a rooftop installation is top choice, along with a in the field installation. So Hidden Level is the first company, so they would have sensors in both installation locations. So at that point, it'd be an airport use agreement with Hidden Level, and then if another company comes along that we want to add sensors to, it would be evaluated as to can they be added to the 2 installations, or does it now go to a 3rd installation? So anyway, what I want to assure you guys is we would be evaluating this, and because each company that would put sensors there, it's anticipated that if they're the one making the usage fee payment, then they would be the ones that would be in the airport use agreement. There is some talk with NASA Ames that we might do a master airport use agreement with them, and we just have like some sort of form that the partner companies would sign on to. So essentially, at this point, the 2 locations are Ayers Hangar, which is the most northerly hangar on the Skyline Drive line of buildings, and then at the very west end runway 6 threshold outside the runway safety area, back in the pocket, both sensors would be trained to the south towards runway 31 and also cover the area where the WISC vertiport would be. And again, the collection of the data here is to actually improve integration of how we're informing FA and various traffic management systems and things. So the ultimate goal is this builds data that helps us develop better systems for integration. And this will tie into a topic later on in the director's report. We had Wing come out to the airport, that's a UAS, and again, it's uncrewed when it's a drone doing home deliveries, and there's a lot of technologies and safeties that are involved. So this is a very positive thing. It does not mean that there will be UAS operations at the airport more than what we're contemplating, because technically the Gen 6, if they're doing hover testing off the vertiport and that's uncrewed, then it technically is a UAS, right? But that all being said, so we're asking for the support of the commission to take a vote to make a recommendation or not after answering any questions and collecting feedback. But the idea would be we're not going to come back to the commission every time one of these partner companies want to come in to tell you, I mean, I can update you in the director's report, how whether we're adding companies and those types of things. But the idea is that if we have to do individual airport use agreements for each and every payee, we're going to just take those technically straight to the council just to skip an extra step. So you're approving a concept for airport use agreement for the types of data collections. We will evaluate the locations, but at this point, the locations are on the outer edges so that it collects a lot of different data points. Now, with that, what I would like to say is we might have Josh Everett from NASA. Are you online?
Josh, are you able to talk?
Excellent. So at this point, I'd like to invite Josh just to add anything else, and he's available to help answer any questions if you guys have them.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jeff, and thank you all. Great to be here. Again, really appreciate your support, Jeff, and everybody's here with, working with Whisk, one of our partners, True Weather, again. And really what we're trying to do here is, help advanced air mobility, which is answering the question, how do we generate all of this new technology and how do we integrate it into the national airspace at scale? And so, the economic developers, they kind of mentioned, this new technology, and really Hollister is playing a critical role nationally, right? NASA Ames is just, 45 miles away. So we're working with a lot of these companies that are at the forefront of this technology and kind of using the airspace here to really develop that. And these sensors are going to help with that. So I'll kind of pause there and see if there's anything I can further elaborate or expand upon.
Okay. Call for public comment.
Is there any public comment?
No public comment.
Thanks. You guys have any questions?
Hi, I'm Renee Wells. I had one question. How are the sensors above or below ground, and how big are they?
Ooh, good question. So these sensors, they're passive RF sensors, so radio frequency, so no harm if anybody gets close to them, and they're going to be above ground. Kind of similar to the True Weather setup on the airport. It would look something like that. They're roughly the size of, say, a 5-foot human and weigh roughly 100 pounds.
And I would add to answer that question, we would anticipate potentially like in the field location, we would do something similar where it would be something of a 10 by 10 cement pad would be poured. It's non-structural, it doesn't require a permit as long as it's under 10 by 10 feet. And then we would be able to put the equipment on that pad. So you're not talking massive, big piece of equipment. Yeah.
And who would maintain those if they needed to be maintained?
Well, one of the reasons for putting the cement pad there is so that when their technicians come out, because airport maintenance is not going to go out and make adjustments to RF. This is technical equipment. We leave it to the specialists, and again, this is the reason for how we structure the airport use agreement. The partner companies will have to sign on that, like what the access routes are and follow the procedure for access and all of those types of things, right? That's what the airport use agreement has all of those requirements in there. And you may remember I brought you guys the True Weather one. We didn't get to bring it to you before, but brought it to you after so you can see what finished one looks like. So that's the tool we want to use to accommodate this use. I think it's a worthy use. I think it's in line with our Monterey Bay Tech and Monterey Bay Darts and all the current activity going on in this emerging market. I think it's great that we can provide a role. And also these sensors could lead to the potential of, because it provides benefit to these kinds of emerging technology companies, maybe it makes us desirable for other companies to consider wanting to come and develop somewhere either on the airport or around the airport. So.
And it's bringing revenue.
A little bit, yes. Every little bit helps.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I just have a comment. I would encourage you, Jeff, to pursue the commonality of the units through NASA and have one point of contact. So we don't have 50 different sensors out there from 50 different companies providing data, 50 different vendors. Maybe NASA can coordinate. And instead of, I'm just exaggerating, 50, we have 15 that are providing data, commonality data that all vendors could access. Instead of having a sea of sensors out in the field, we end up with a few sensors that are shared by the vendors. That's why I encourage you to have NASA as a point of contact to coordinate that, so everything's uniform and common and shareable.
I appreciate that concern. I'm not interested in having the Hollister Airport become a parking lot for sensors. We don't need to be a huge parking lot for sensors. But we do want to accommodate those that are critical to help move this technology forward. Yes. Thank you. We take a motion for the recommendation.
Do we have a motion?
I'll move to make a recommendation for the airport to present an airport use or airport use agreements in support of the Hollister Airspace Ecosystem Research Project for City Council consideration and approval.
We have a second.
I'll second it.
Anything else? Question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? It's approved.
Like to say thank you, Josh.
Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, Jeff. Airport Director's report.
Yeah, moving on to the next informational report quickly here. Just briefly, back at the end of March and in early April there, I attended the 2026 LIFT Summit Conference, which is the conference that focuses on advanced air mobility and uncrewed aircraft, emerging technology and markets. And it's local here held in Monterey. The conference was well attended by industry representatives, various companies, aviation colleagues, the Federal Aviation Administration, and Caltrans Division of Aeronautics was all there. One of the things about pointing that out, who was in attendance, when you start getting FAA and Caltrans attending these types of conferences, you know that this technology is getting serious. This is now beyond just pipes and drains. This is getting to where real plans of implementation are happening. And we are lucky enough to enjoy three of the top OEMs in advanced air mobility here in our region. Wisk is our current people on the airport that are our AAM stars on the airport. And we get to add a second star here in a minute on the report. That being said, I was in attendance both the two conference days. The first day, March 31st, was a demonstration day. And it was actually a holiday too. The office was closed. But I was able to meet on the 31st with Beta Technologies about adding charging capacity to the airport. And so I was able to take them over to the Hollister Jet Center. We would anticipate fixed charging being located somewhere near the FBO building. So you don't mix electric with fuel farm. Those two things don't go great together. But yes, slightly back by the fence and whatever between the FBO building and the DK building might be a spot where we could look at adding some charging there. And I want to point out that we are a public use airport, and while we're looking at all this emerging technology and supporting these research projects, etc., what we want is we want to be serving as wide a variety of electric-based platforms for aviation use, whether that be a drone that could be clarified as aviation use, or if that's all the way up to the pipistrels that they use, right? There's talk that the pipstrel, the cost of maintenance is much lower, so maybe pipistrels being able to operate in the area means a new opportunity for someone who couldn't afford a legacy classic aircraft. And the cost of those, now maybe somebody can come in and fly out, start getting in the world of aviation, enjoying it recreationally because of the lower cost to operate. So we'll see. But that is the goal is to prepare the airport to provide as broad service to as many electric platforms as possible. So one avenue would be the beta technologies. And then anyway, going back to the conference, I was asked to speak on a panel, which seemed to be one of the highlights of the panel of the conference. It was the last panel of the conference, and it was for airport advanced air mobility, airport integration, lessons from the field. I got to sit on the panel with the representatives for the San Jose Airport and the San Francisco Airport. So it was quite an honor to be asked to speak and to be able to represent the exciting things that are occurring here in the region and also at Hollister. And I can tell you that how advanced air mobility is operating at GA airports is much different than commercial, right? So anyway, it was a big honor to speak with them. So on item number two, the airport hosted wing, which is a local UAS operator, to provide a presentation followed by question and answers on the 22nd of Wednesday in the airport office conference room. The message we shared specifically from the wing people was come meet the wing team and learn about UAS operations taking place at the Christensen Ranch Airfield. Learn how wing safely integrates into the Hollister airspace, and see a display of their aircraft and bring your questions. And so with that, we had, I thought, a nice response for the middle of the week and morning time frame. We had about 25 people there. And we received a great presentation. Wing covered how they are doing home deliveries. That's what their business model focuses on. They currently do DoorDash in some Walmart stores. And they're operating commercially in the greater Dallas metro area. And so we were able to listen to their presentation, see their technology for things just like the little hook that drops down and connects to the bag that picks up whatever item that's going. And they were quite impressive with the thought and the contemplation. And again, what I wanted to impress upon people was it was an opportunity to see in this UAS type industry. Again, these are uncrewed systems flying in the air. The redundancy and the safety that is being built into these systems is really impressive. No one wants to see a UAS conflict with a legacy aircraft, right? Years ago, that would have made me very nervous to even say the word uncrewed system. Now, we're seeing technology and safety that is really quite impressive. So with that, I invited each of the commissioners to disclose. Commissioner Hurst, Commissioner Wells, and Commissioner Watt were able to attend, and I think it was well received by each. With that, item number three. We got the FAA's approval of the Joby Aviation through the fence access permit for them to begin operations at 1891 Airway Drive, which is the building at the back fence, at the back gate. So they have already started to submit building renovation plans because some of the, obviously had been previously served as a dispensary, so it needs to be slightly modified for their use now. And for through the fence, we are anticipating that they will input a 60-foot automatic rolling gate that their aircraft will come across, and then it will be towed down to the west Now, the airport will be, and Joby will both be coordinating with airport tenants, because it's gonna take a little bit of getting used to the short-term ways. They're gonna have to tow the plane down the access road. We hope to have a solution to that issue. So with that being said, we need to train tenants that before you just go zipping down through there in your vehicle, you're gonna need to look for flashing lights, and is there a aircraft being towed behind it, right? So, and then long term, we have the taxiway Zulu and Yankee concept for taxiway and stuff. So we'll see what long-term accommodation looks like versus short-term, but in the short term, so I want to emphasize that while we're excited to have them there is work to do to coordinate so that everybody is informed about how those operations will happen and be impact on the airport. That being the case, item number 4. The airport continues to progress through the FAA review for the Wisk Vertiport project. We have received the technical FAA approval for the airport layout plan pen and ink update, which is the very specific technical planning piece. And currently we are in progress for the NEPA, which is National Environmental Policy Act, submittal and determination. So that is in progress. Today, components of the project actually started showing up because these have been scheduled for shipment and come from overseas. And so we had a crane on the dirt infield near taxiway Kilo. Appropriate NOTAMs were in place. And so we had a crane there that was extending over to Kilo to pick up stuff out of containers and put it into a staging area. And so that activity goes on through the end of this week, and then we'll be done with that. But we can't break ground until we have the NEPA determination. So that's being said, then you have a fiscal year 25 and 26 budget overview, and we've been here quite lengthy. So what I'll do is just cover real quickly highlights here. The summary chart in my staff report actually points out that in 23-24, the budget inherited as I walked through the door. Revenue was budgeted at 1.4, almost 1.5 million, and the proposed revenue that we're looking at budgeting for in 26-27 is a little over 1.7, and that's relatively conservative number there. So there is a positive trend there. And total expenditure in fiscal year 23-24, total expenditure was around almost 1.6 million. And we, in 24-25, you see it went up a little bit more. I think some of that had to do with a grant match possibly in that number. And then but what you see is in 25-26, we ratcheted down. We've figured out some ways to get a little more efficient, and in 26-27, that's we're right on par for a lower operational cost. So such items as like the where we traded in the former tractor and we got a tractor with a 20-foot rotary mowing deck. We've gained tremendous efficiency. We're faster at mowing. We take less fuel, and having the newer tractor, obviously less mechanical issues. So that's a perfect example. And the annual perspective there, so if you look in any one year, the difference between revenue and expenditures, you see that we were almost minus 90,000 in fiscal year 23-24. That means expenditures exceeded revenue by almost 90,000. In fiscal year 25-26, we are projecting to end just the difference between revenue coming in versus expenditures, a positive 428,000. And what you will notice on the 11 by 17 sheet that was provided to you, if you look at the colored column, which is the numbers that for the department requested fiscal year 26-27 budget, you will notice at the top, it has an estimated beginning cash balance. So by having the $428,000 positive revenue over expenditures in 25-26 is that's what we're projecting to end the year at. That gives us a positive cash balance to start 26-27 of approximately 175,000. So happy to report to the commission, the airport is out of the negative cash balance position. One little caveat to that comment is that is unaudited. We are catching up on city audits right now, which the airport is part of, right? So there could slightly be a change, but we don't anticipate significant changes at this point. So we're relatively confident in this position being represented. So we're out of the negative position into the positive. And for sake of time here, after you go through all the detail here, the basic concept is there at the bottom, you see the estimated ending cash balance if we were to execute the budget that is proposed here in the 26-27 column. The estimated cash balance at the end of 26-27 would be $475,000. So we are trending in the right direction. It's a lot more than just myself. It's a lot of work. The staff has been integral in working to gain efficiencies and those types of things, and compliments to the finance department for putting up with me butting into business and asking a lot of questions and doing research. And so yeah, it's a team effort, but it's great to have the airport moving in the right direction. So then second page is just the breakout of the two anticipated FAA grant projects. So we hope to get the taxiway Alpha design. So taxiway Alpha reconstruction, the design grant this coming, we should get the award hopefully in June or July. And so if we move forward with that project, the way the numbers look here, so you have about a $835,000, almost $836,000 project. To note there that it's FAA is funding projects at the 95% level for these grants, and so that's relatively nice. That leaves us with a only anticipated about $2,000 grant match for that project. And then the second project is the infrastructure bill law funded airport layout plan update with a narrative as well as AGIS surveys. And so that we don't get the for those projects, those aren't eligible for the Caltrans state grant match. That's the difference. And so you see our 10% goes up a little bit higher. Therefore, the grant match is $22,500. But all told, we anticipate that project to be $450,000. And the second page is just a combining schedule because those in finance, they work off of GL numbers, not projects like this. So that is quick overview of the budget. At this point, any questions or public comment on any items on the director's report, including the budgets?
Any public comment?
No, sir.
Any questions?
No questions. I just want to say thank you to the airport director for working so hard to balance the budget and bring us to a positive, a good positive. I know you've worked very hard on that, and it shows, and much appreciated for our hard work.
All right, and then last item on the agenda would be for you guys, any reports outs from you, or it's your opportunity to consider making a request of future agenda items? Or you just leave it to us, we just throw the coins up and bring up the cool stuff to you, right?
I have no thinking.
I'll accept that motion.
All right, thank you guys.
All right.
Recording stopped.
So much.